Affirmative action, affirmative action, affirmative action is government policies or programs that seek to redress past injustices against specified groups by making special efforts to provide a number of these groups with access to education and employment opportunities. Government policies or programs that seek to redress past injustices against specified groups by making special efforts to provide members of these groups with access to educational and employment opportunities. Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments of the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1791, they ensure certain rights and liberties to the people. Bill of Attainder, a law that declares a person guilty of a crime without a trial. Brown versus Board of Education, the 1954 Supreme Court decision that struck down the separate but equal doctrine as fundamentally unequal. This case eliminated state power to use race as a criterion for discrimination in law and provided the national government with the power to intervene by exercising strict regulatory policies against discriminatory actions. Civil liberties, areas of personal freedom constitutionally protected from government interference. Civil rights, obligation imposed on government to make positive action to protect citizens from any illegal actions of government agencies and of other private citizens. Clear and present danger test to determine whether speech is protected or unprotected based on its capacity to present a clear and present danger to society. De facto, by fact, practices that occur even when there is no legal enforcement, such as school segregation in much of the United States today. De facto, literally, by fact, practices that occur even when there is no legal enforcement, such as school segregation in much of the United States today. De jure, literally by law, legally enforced practices such as school segregation in the South before the 1960s. Double jeopardy, the Fifth Amendment right provided that a person cannot be tried twice for the same crime. Due process of law, the right of every citizen against arbitrary action by national or state government. Eminent domain, government to take private property from public use. Equal Protection Clause, provision of the 14th Amendment guaranteeing citizens the equal protection of the law. This clause has served as the basis for the civil rights of African Americans, women, and other groups. Establishment Clause, the First Amendment clause that says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. This law means that a wall of separation exists between church and state. Exclusionary Rule, the ability of courts to exclude evidence obtained in violation of the Fourth Amendment. The ability of courts to exclude evidence obtained in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Ex post facto laws that declare an action to be illegal after it has been committed. 15th Amendment, one of 3 Civil War amendments. It guaranteed voting rights for African American men. One of 3 Civil War amendments. It guaranteed voting rights for African American men. 15th Amendment. Fighting words, speech that directly incites damaging conduct. 14th Amendment. One of 3 Civil War amendments. It guaranteed equal protection and due process. Free exercise clause, the First Amendment clause that protects a citizen's right to believe and practice whatever religion one chooses. Grand jury, jury that determines whether sufficient evidence is available to justify a trial. Grand juries do not rule on the accused guilt or innocent. Habeas corpus, a court order demanding that an individual in custody be brought into court and shown the cause for detention. Libel, whatever that is. A written statement made in reckless disregard of the truth that is considered damaging to a victim because it is malicious, scandalous, and defamatory. Miranda Rule. The requirement articulated by the Supreme Court in Miranda v. Arizona 1966 that persons under arrest must be informed prior to police interrogation of their rights to remain silent and to have the benefit of legal counsel. Prior restraint. An effort by a governmental agency to block the publication of material it deems libelous or harmful in some other way. Censorship. In the United States, the courts forbid prior restraint except under the worst extraordinary circumstances. An effort by a governmental agency to block the publication of material it deems libelous or harmful in some other way. Censorship. In the United States, the courts forbid prior restraints except under the most extraordinary circumstances. Right to privacy. The right to be left alone, which has been interpreted by the Supreme Court to entail individual access to birth control and abortion. Selective incorporation is the process by which different protections in the Bill of Rights were incorporated into the 14th Amendment, thus guaranteeing citizens protection from state as well as national government. Separate but equal doctrine that public accommodation could be segregated by race but still be considered equal. Accommodations. Slander, an oral statement made in reckless disregard of the truth that is considered damaging to the victim because it is malicious, scandalous, and defamatory. Speech plus. Speech accompanied by conduct such as sit-ins, picketing, and demonstration. Protection of this form of speech under the First Amendment is conditional, and restrictions imposed by state or local authorities are acceptable if properly balanced by consideration of public order. Strict scrutiny. A test used by the Supreme Court in racial discrimination cases and other cases involving civil liberties and civil rights that places the burden of proof of the government rather than on the challengers to show that the law in question is constitutional. Strict scrutiny, a test used by Supreme Court in racial discrimination cases and other cases involving civil liberties and civil rights that places the burden of proof on the government rather than on the challengers to show that the law in question is constitutional. Whatever the fuck that means. Shit's so retarded. Page on that. 13th Amendment. one of 3 Civil War amendments. It abolished slavery.